Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first panel, Transforming Army Recruiting Policy.
Well, good morning. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Major General Johnny Davis, Commanding General, U.S. Army Recruiting Command, and my partner in crime to get all of this done.
Good morning, and I'm Antoinette Gant, the Chief of the Army Enterprise Marketing Office. Thank you for being with us today.
So this morning, we're going to talk about transforming Army recruiting. But before we get into the details, which there are a lot of details, let's give you a rehash of what happened last year. So we started off the year, and as you know, the Secretary of the Army and Army senior leaders gave us a mission of 55,000 regular Army sessions. That means deployed to training, and then 5,000 in the delayed entry program. So they put off their enlistment to the next fiscal year, but it gives us and our training base some flexibility and predictability for fiscal year 2023 and 24 and 25. So this last year, we finished the year, of course, at 55,000. And that's what the baseline was that Congress really resourced us for in the National Defense Authorization Act. But more importantly, what we're able to do is, so we'll crush that and then really build this delayed entry program. And I tell you, that's very important. So over 11,500, that's a big deal. So now we provide a predictability, and we're filling basic combat training seats for the first quarter of this fiscal year 25. Without that, what I've learned over the last 2 years, when you don't fill those seats, it's hard to catch up. For our Army to catch up, and then for our units to really predict when these replacement superstars will arrive. Remember, my daughter's a Battalion S3 in the 10th Mountain Fires Battalion, and she quickly tells me when she's not at 100%. So this is real. And yes, so I get it all the time. So I'm all in, but I just wanted to just give you an idea of how we did last year. And of course, with the transformation by the Secretary and the Chief, they made some other changes, of course, with bringing Army Marketing Office, Cadet Command, innovation. I mean, very historic changes. But let me turn it over to General Gant and let her talk about what she was able to do over the last year, and then I'll go into some of the details of how we're transforming and how this is impacting each and every one of you in our great United States Army.
Thank you, General Davis. And I just wanted to remind those, how many of you were here last year? Okay, good. Thank you for coming back. And I promise I won't make you clap this year, okay? We have done some exciting things in 2024, and we are looking forward to what 2025 has to offer. But the first thing is we made mission. So if you don't do anything else, you got to give General Davis and the team a hand clap in regards to that, because that is huge. That is huge. And doing that, last year we talked about the Army Enterprise Marketing Office and what we were about. This year we want to talk about more about the transformation and the things that we have done over the last year. One thing we do know, that competition is real steep. And for us, we've got to continue to transform to ensure that we're keeping up and having Army as top of mind in everything that we do with the prospect audience. So with that, just a few things that I just want to let you know. My priority remains the same. We've got two things to do. We've got to attract talent, and we've got to bolster awareness. And we do that by making sure that we're keeping brand top of mind, and we're also using the research and the data that we actually receive. That is the huge part of this to really drive the decisions that we are making. One of the top things that we did last year was our regional marketing offices and establishing them to make sure that we're connecting with the recruiting brigades. That was huge, because in that, not only do we have an Army marketing plan for the national level, but we're nesting the marketing plans of our regional offices to make sure that we're listening to and understanding what's unique about those regions and nesting those marketing plans into what we're doing at the national level. Now, hold on, that's just the beginning, because in addition to that, we also had GoArmy.com that actually went to the cloud. Now, that's another thing we need to be clapping about, because how many times do we as the Army transform to be able to do something like that? And so going to the cloud allowed us to be able to improve the user experience. And just today, I am happy to announce we have what's called EMM Connect app. It's an app that the recruiters have on their phone. And as soon as a prospect talks about they want more information about the Army, guess what? Based on the zip code, it goes straight to the recruiter. And the recruiter can then actually connect with that prospect right then and there. How much transforming is that? That is really cool. And that's happening just today, effective today. Now, you've all seen our First Step commercials, and you know how much success we had in March of 23 when we launched the Be All You Can Be. And then the campaign that we actually had with our First Steps, last year in August, we had our first commercials to actually come out. Well, just this year, we had in September, we had our next commercial to come out. And last year, one of the things that the secretary actually told us that we had to do was we had to expand the market. And so in expanding the market, we looked at an opportunity for us to actually launch commercials that would allow us to talk about not just those who are finishing high school, but those who actually have finished high school, have some college, maybe even some experience out in the market of actually working and decided, hey, this is not working for me. And so we want to attract that talent as well. So these are all the transformational things that we are doing together as one organization. It is not just marketing and sales. That's what we call the recruiting force. It's marketing and sales together. And we know being together allows us to be able to build that awareness that we want top of funnel, but then get to the true essence of where it is. And that's at the local level with the recruiters to make sure that they can make the connection. That's the game changer. Sir.
No, thanks. And let me tell you, it's more than just the partnership with marketing and really how we see ourselves both at the national, regional, and local level. That's really changed our thought process on how we look at the customer, our qualified applicants out there, because how we recruit is very local. How you recruit in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is going to be different than Key West or Mississippi. I'm from Wisconsin, so I may use Wisconsin as an example. So there's more than this. So while this was happening, let me tell you what the Army has done to continue to move this ball forward and really transform. So of course the Secretary stood up a separate agency, because I was so focused at the recruiting command in the volume fight that we brought in Major General, now Lieutenant General Engel, and his Ready team to really help us move the ball forward while we were in the volume fight. Does everybody make sense? Does that make sense? So while they were helping us really think outside the box, we were trying to really build the force. I really want to thank HRC. I think General Rampy was here as well, with helping us get our personnel, our talent, how we selected recruiters, how we got that right. So all of these lines of effort were happening across the board, in addition to our partnership with the marketing enterprise. And so all of this really came together. It was hard. It was not easy to move all of these pieces, but we really started to see some positive momentum about the February, March timeframe. Let me tell you what that positive momentum led into. So again, whole of Army Support Headquarters, DA, HRC, we had an Ready team, General Engel, General Venter, I see Mr. Shrimpton out here, Chris Sailing. All of these superstars really helped us think outside the box. So we started to really dig into some of the initiatives out there. So first and foremost, again, getting the talent right, and we started to see a big change in bringing the right talent of not only leaders, but also recruiters. Let's assess our recruiters and make sure we select the right recruiters. I see General Simonson. She really helped us put that together. I mean, this was an entire whole of Army effort, but it took us about 4 to 5 months, and we really started to see the benefits and the return on investment from that. If you remember our soldier referral program, think about that. It took us about 7 months to get in, across the word across the force. Almost 77,000 referrals in about 17 months. almost closing in on 5,000 contracts. We knew we needed to, in terms of talent, relate to the field in terms of how we select or how we bring in future recruiters. We don't want the Department of the Army select recruiters. So I don't want to go to a unit and say, hey, Sergeant Davis, hey, you're going to be a recruiter. What we want you to do is we want you to be a recruiter because a volunteer recruiter is a more productive recruiter. Everybody agree? So you bring in a volunteer recruiter, let's invest in you, and we know wherever you land, whether it be Watertown, Wisconsin,
Or Port Gibson, Mississippi.
we know you're going to do great things for us on the ground. We knew that the medical assessment, MHS Genesis, we all know that we know more. And so MHS Genesis is here to stay. So that's another area we had to look at in order to help our recruiters. So we needed to bring some providers out of our military treatment facilities, and thanks to our headquarters DA staff and our great director of the Army staff, ma'am, thanks for supporting us in this effort. So now we can put more providers at the MEPS across the nation, our top 30 MEPS, so that we can get more recruits through the pipeline. Because a 19-year-old recruit, and again, I think about them, I've talked to thousands, when they're sitting there trying to say, I want to join the Army, and the process takes 30, 60, 90 days, I don't think they have the patience. I mean, we all are parents, many of us, we know that. So what we want to do is, I would love one of my daughters to, from contact with the recruiter to be in the Army, 30 days or sooner. But bottom line, we want this process to be smooth and really workable for the applicant. And of course, not only that, we need to invest in our recruiter force, both in how we, once we place you in a wonderful environment, let's make sure you're trained to transition from a post with all of the amenities to a location in the middle, some zip code, and wherever state, northern New York, Montana, Guam. So these are all the locations we want to make sure that you're ready to transition to. So we really started to invest in our recruiters, added 2 weeks or 80 to 100 hours to our training, and we brought in the families to help with that process. TRICARE remote, quality of life, child care, all the things that a young staff sergeant, remember our average age of our recruiters is a 25-year-old staff sergeant. So you got to think about that. So that is all the things that we really began to invest in. And once they hit the ground, let's invest in you even further. Once you go out there and crush it, the Army's going to invest in you, both in terms of meritorious promotion, 24-1. I mean, I think we've promoted or recognized in no other unit in the Army over 140 superstars to this date. And it's really changing the culture in recruiting command. But I'll stop right there. There's so many more transformational things that we're doing, but these are out-of-the-box things that we've never thought about, and now we're starting to see success on the ground. Tony?
Sir, and I just want to bring up something that General Davis talked about. It is truly about the recruiter, making sure that the recruiter has in its access the things that they need to be able to make sure that they can actually do what they're supposed to be doing. And that's prospecting and nurturing the leads of which they actually receive. Just recently, our data analytics team put together a dashboard that allows the leadership at the brigade level to really look at their particular areas and determine how they actually want to put together their plan to prospect in their particular location. So they understand which areas are doing well and which areas are not doing so well. And this way they can take the lessons learned from each other to ensure that they are doing that same types of things that are helping one area to be successful to transform it into another. So this is truly exciting. We are 21st century.
I know. It has been a journey, and again, I want to thank everyone here for their support. I mean, I can continue on and on, Tony. I remember when the Ready team started thinking about the warrant officers. Now I know this has been brought up a number of times over the years, and from really the thought process to execution to first warrant in training was 4 to 6 months. Very historic. That first group is now deployed across recruiting command. Recruiter and warrant officer in each of the brigades. We have about 7 or 8 in the and battalions, selected battalions. and we have another 5 or 6 in the schoolhouse ready to receive the second cohort, which is going through training and joining us here. We'll graduate in December. Third cohort is already selected, and we're going to really start to train them. So that's just the warrant officers. The next 42 Tango professionalized recruiting force, that first cohort is already, I mean, these are all historic things while also crushing the 55 and 5 mission. Think about that. So changing, while in flight to really transform to think about the future. This 42 Tango, force is already been assessed and are really in the training with industry right now with companies like Amazon, Deloitte, Wells Fargo, University of Louisville, Boot Camp Digital. So I can go on what, and they're excited. Some of them are here at AUSA. Every time I run across them, they're pumped up and ready to lead us into the future. So just to see all of this change underway is very exciting, and I just want to say thanks to everybody. I can talk more and more like how we prospect using AI. We got an experiment going on. I can touch on that if there's another question, but I know, turn it over to Tony. Anything?
Sir, I think we should just see if we got a few questions.
No, let's keep talking.
No, let's keep talking.
Let's keep.
We'll answer a few questions. There's one in the back.
Thank you. You talked a little bit about selecting the right recruiter and talent management. And if assignment pay is kind of the carrot for recruiters, 601 actions for ineffective recruiters are kind of the stick. And so with 601 actions, we have a quota system that does not take into account geographical areas like you speak about, the differences in those. Recruiting is harder in certain areas than others, and DASSers can still be faced with even a voluntary reassignment that sees a qualified NCOER with no enumeration. So in a modern recruiting, a historically tough time with Genesis, as you note, public education, obesity crisis, which saw USREC increase future soldier body fat allowance by 2% this year to meet the 55,000 goal. Do we still think that non-dynamic quotas for 601 actions are an effective method for managing recruiters? And if it is, why does that not apply organizationally at multiple levels when they are not meeting quotas as a whole?
Yeah, so that's a great question. A lot of different dynamics in that question. So let's talk about service as a recruiter and really accountability. So there's a baseline of what we like each recruiter with training and, of course, receiving special duty assignment pay. We want a baseline for every recruiter. Try to, really enlist one applicant. Doesn't matter where you are. So one applicant per month for 11 months. So you got to build in time for leave and those things for either school training. So that's one area that we've really began to focus on. So you talk about the regional areas. I would tell you, and we've taken a look at this, we're data driven, we have a lot of data analytics. So there are recruiters who are challenged to produce in, let's say, what we think is the best market. Give me a New York City? Miami? Yeah, so we have about the same percentage who are challenged to produce in Miami and New York City as in Chicago, or what we believe are different. So I think it's not so much regional. We also have superstars who are crushing it in some of the craziest places. I like to use Wisconsin. We have recruiters, especially some of our volunteer recruiters. Remember I told you volunteer, excited, hit the ground. They're doing more in the last really 8 months than that entire station has done in 2 years. So it's not so much based on where they are. It's really the energy from the recruiter themselves. I have a recruiter that's on the western slope of Colorado. He's our number one, we have two. Our number one recruiter works the western slope, I think 70 enlistments over the last year. That's more than in 7 companies in the United States Army Recruiting Command. But before him, there was no one that's put that many in. But this is one tireless motivated recruiter. I have another recruiter in New York City, I think, Sergeant First Class Kaba. He is, he's our number one, I think 80 plus in just one recruiter. So again, we have recruiters in some of the places where you would think, oh, it's regional, the market doesn't support it. They are crushing it and really proving all the models wrong. And so that's what we're investing in. But going back to accountability, we need at least a baseline for every recruiter, because I want every recruiter, and we all know that, we have to be fair. We want every recruiter to carry a rock in their rucksack. And if it's too hard, now then let us know and we'll invest in you. But if not, we don't want you, really, and your family having a tough time in recruiting command. And we have many hundreds of volunteers ready to go, and we'll get you back out to the force. But right now, the force that's not really happening. They're really doing well for us. Our volunteer group of recruiters, that cohort, thanks HRC, is some of the most productive cohorts of recruiters we have ever seen in 10 years. And so they've just been on the ground for about 6 months.
Morning, General. Gary Port, New York chapter president in ARA New York. Real specific, when I heard the secretary on Monday say 61,000, my first thought was, when I go back to talk to my folks in the recruiting battalion, what am I going to tell them? Are there specifics for how we're going to try to get that 61,000?
Well, for each and every one of you, you're all ambassadors of the United States Army. If you're here, what I would ask you to do is don't do anything additional. When you see the opportunity to speak with a potential applicant, remember you're an influencer for that next generation. Never walk past them, because, again, my grandfather served as my influencer, World War II vet. I spent a lot of time with him in the garden growing up, and that's what he would speak about. So he would answer those questions I have about the military. So I would need everyone's help. And just let them know the U.S. Army's still hiring. And 61,000 is a big number, but certainly achievable, as the Secretary of the Army said. And I think based on what I see in the force and the investments that the Army's making, I'm very confident and optimistic in our wonderful recruiters and their families that we're going to, again, crush it in 25.
And sir, if I can add to that, just think about the things that we talked about. We transformed here in 2024, in fiscal year 2024. On top of what we've done then, now continuing that success, I think that allows us to be that more in tune and have the awareness that we didn't have. Think about FY 2023. That's when we did Be All You Can Be. That was the top of the awareness. That was the relaunch. That when everybody was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're going back to Be All You Can Be. It really wasn't a go back to it. What it was that was what resonated, not just with those who had served, but those that were wanting or considering to serve, because of the fact that this is saying we want the best you that you can actually be. So all the things that we are implementing with our innovation cell, all of these things are going to help us to actually continue to improve in how we have awareness out to the prospect audience of which we are actually looking for. And I think, sir, you're right. We have no choice but to make this happen.
Sir, just a quick question. The tone of the brief has been incredibly positive, and we should celebrate the fact that we made mission and we've rebuilt the depth. But if you listen to the comments from the Secretary and the Chief this week, they've been a lot more measured. So with all the positive changes that have happened in Recruiting Command, all the ways that we've leveraged technology, what are still the causes for concern that you see, and how, as we as in the force, can we help address those?
I think you want to add before? Well, so there's the headwinds are still there. If we think they have stopped blowing, they've not. But what I've learned as I represent the recruiting force and the recruiting enterprise, in order to break through some of these headwinds, one of the key things I've shared with you, that I've shared with the force, you just got to remain positive. There are going to be things that we're going to see, whether it's those qualified, drop in propensity, medical, a sessions pipeline. What I've learned is that all of them have been, potential areas that we need to take a look at, but I think we've addressed them, and I think we know how to even address them further with the increase in the number of applicants coming through. So wherever we think the bottlenecks are that we've learned from this last year, I think with the whole of Army approach, we'll be able to address that. So there's not a lot of things that are, surprising based on what we're seeing in terms of momentum. But I think if there is an issue, we'll come up on the net and let the Army senior leaders know, hey, I think we may need help here. And every time they've been able to really help us out. So that's a great question.
Oh, because I thought they were going to tell us, man, we've done so well. They don't have any questions because we already answered everything.
Yeah, we'll just keep talking.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, okay, I got one for you. Yeah, CASA, Mike Flanagan here in Virginia. Back to the Secretary's comments, I think she recognized that we got a lot of veterans out there, 18 million. They're probably not doing the sales job that we wish they would. And the Secretary alluded to the fact that we want to get more out of the veterans. Tell your story. Yeah. What are we actually doing to encourage veterans to tell their story?
Yes, sir, thanks. That's a great question. And to preface that, I just want everybody to know our veteran population is declining. So remember, as a young youth growing up in America, you may have an interaction with a recruiter at high school, but sir, usually as someone in your family that has served and is able to answer any questions that you may have. With that decline, we saw that, and I think that's one of the areas I would ask for everybody's help. Now, I personally have, I think the Army Echoes magazine that goes to all retirees, I've penned a request for all, also with our VSO agencies, our CASA, Civilian Aid Secretary of the Army, our Army Reserve Ambassadors, ARAs. We just need everybody's help because you bring up a good point. Sometimes we can assume that we have those who are out there amongst our communities with that military background to answer questions, but that's actually decreasing. And our Army's we know is small compared to what it has been in the past. And so this is one area I've continually beat the drum on. And sir, your question is right. Need all veterans your impact on our young generation should never be underestimated. They look to you as leaders, influencers, mentors, and just take the time to invest in them because they may have a lot of questions. They just don't know how to ask them. But thanks for the question.
There's still 15 minutes if people aren't going to ask questions. A question, again, for just talent management. When it comes to recruiters in certain areas, there are obviously different communities and cultures that they may encounter. We have first-generation Americans who their parents might not, speak English at home. Has USAREC ever considered a form of language pay similar to what we had 20 years ago when the Army would pay kind of anyone for certain languages, regardless of billet, to help them maybe with like specific areas that have a heavy presence of a second language besides English, especially to be able to talk to parents of high schoolers and things of that nature?
Now, I think we have recruiters who receive language pay, but I think to really get after your question, we have looked at areas where we have a particular language, and based on the input from those companies, remember I got 250 companies across the world, their feedback is really telling us, hey, I think we need more speakers, let's say Spanish speakers in this area, or those that are fluent in Nepalese in this area. And that's what we have learned over the years. So yes, we do have recruiters with language skills who are in the particular area. Not everywhere, because I have recruiters, and I love it, who have particular language skills, but they don't want to go to that area. They want to go to someplace totally, I have, a recruiter with, can speak Arabic, but he wanted to go to Montana because that's where his heart wanted to send him as a recruiter. So just to give you an idea, we do have recruiters. We have recruiters that speak, I think, almost every language out there, and they're wonderful. And we try to place them where we need them, in those communities. But again, remember, a lot of recruiters, they just want to go different places. So we work with both communities of recruiters.
And sir, if I could, in addition to that, from a marketing standpoint, GoArmy.com website is now translatable in Spanish. And the reason why we did that is not necessarily for the recruit, because the recruit probably can't, or prospect can be able to, but for the family member that's actually going there. In addition to that, all of our PPI, this is our marketing materials that we actually send out, we can translate them into any language that we actually need to. And again, the focus is on the influencer, the parent, the coach, or someone who does not necessarily speak, that has English as their first language, but now we can actually connect with them and have them to understand the true, to have an understanding of the true aspect of what their child, daughter, whoever is actually trying to consider with the Army as an area of career.
Good morning.
Good
love
morning.
the excitement, love the fire.
Thank you.
Hey, congratulations to both of you and to the teams and, frankly, the entire Army enterprise for the tremendous success over the past 2 years. My name is Miguel Howe. I'm with the Aurelian Group. Not only am I a soldier for life, but I am a recruiter for life.
Cool.
As I had the opportunity to lead the SoCal Recruiting Battalion 2008 to 2010. So I've got 2 questions for you, one operational, one strategic. Operationally, what are we doing to target the grad market to enable those recruiters, right? That was one of the biggest challenges we faced, that the first sergeants and the commanders faced, was how to orient those stations to that market. And then number 2, I also was responsible for transition efforts on behalf of President Bush at the Bush Institute for 6 years. And I was struck by everybody that we need, community leaders, national leaders on a successful transition side, is the same populations that enable our force when it comes to recruiting. So how is the enterprise integrating successful transitions with recruiting efforts? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll turn over to Tony. So getting after the grad market. So that's one market, that grad market, the labor market. But let me give you a data point where we are with recruiting. So right now, your recruiting force, about 9% are college grads right off the bat. So about 11% have some college. So 1 out of every 5 enlistments are either college grad or some college. So we want this to rise. And so we're seeing that as a good sign. I'll tell you the other thing that's going up, is leading us to look outside the grad market or labor market, is the average age of our incoming recruit. So right now, the average age, and it's been going up, but for last year, is 22 years, 4 months. So when I bring this up, some may think, oh, I thought it would be 18 or 19. That's not the case. Our average recruit is older, more mature, maybe they've decided they want to go to college, maybe they want to try the labor force. They were probably almost always propense, and then about 22 years, they go, you know what? Maybe I want to change of scenery. And so that is something that's really got us thinking about how do we, based off of that data, how does that inform future marketing decisions on getting into this labor or post-grad force? Because I tell you, every time our either UPS or Amazon Prime drops off at the house, I want them to join the Army. But I'm trying, and I think they park down the street because they know me. They know I'm going to hit them up. But bottom line, we're trying to figure that out, and that's why I think our great marketing office is really looking into that. Tony?
One of the things I would say, it's about meeting the prospect where they are, the Gen Z population. And what we found is that they are not on traditional television. They're on the digital platforms. So this year, we're doing 60% of the marketing that we're doing are on digital platforms. So if you do a search, there's something that you will come up from an Army standpoint. Just like when you are looking for those fancy socks that you actually have on, and it comes up in your feed, we're making sure that Army is first of mind in the feed of those individuals that were in the prospect audience area that we're actually looking for. The digital YouTube. We find that there are a lot of our Gen Z population that are grads that are there. I have a son that's 21. He has nothing to do with regular television. Like everything he does is actually on the digital platform. Paid search. All of these things allow us to be able to reach that audience of where they actually are, to understand and say, man, this is something I haven't thought about before.
No, thanks. So that's a great question. I mean, this is a segment of the market, and I'll tell you, it's also a market. So let me tell you how that's interdependent on a lot of things that we're doing in terms of transformation. So in terms of our future soldier prep course, and I think I saw Jen Walkwood's here, that's another area. So when you got to think about the environment. So we saw the test scores, decrease post-COVID, and what happened is that there's an entire segment that would be that close if we invested in them because the test scores decline. That a short investment will bring the test scores back up, and that's why we look to invest in this segment of the population, and it has yielded transformational success for us. I know Jen will back up and she'll answer any questions, but 27,000 graduates, 90 plus % success rate, both academic and physical. That everyone else is now taking heed of that success, and that's why all the other services are following suit. But all we started off with was, hey, some of these scores are decreasing. What do we do? A simple course to really invest in them, not just from academic and physical, but hey, let's invest in them, show them how camaraderie, how to eat, all of the different, how to exercise, and what we've seen within 2 weeks is transformational, and they're going on to really lead our force as they do graduate and go off to basic combat training and to their first units of assignments. That investment has been returned. The Army's gotten a lot of return on investment, and we will continue to benefit from that.
Sir, ma'am, Major Moreau from the French Army Aviation. Just a quick question about gender. Do you see any improvements of recruiting young ladies and young women, especially when it's more attractive for them to go in Navy or Air Force? We basically have the same kind of problem in France.
Shame.
No, we have the same kind of,
We
problems
actually,
in France.
to answer
Thank
your
you.
question, though, we are actually seeing an increase of our female population, not only in looking from an enlisted standpoint, but our ROTC programs. You would be amazed at how many times I've gone to ROTC programs, senior ROTC programs, and we have more females in those programs than we actually do males at this point. So truly, they are seeing the essence of what we as the Army have to offer. Sir, we got 3 minutes, and I you know what?
That's the biggest three
I
I've
know,
ever
the
seen.
biggest, oh my gosh. But there's one thing that I forgot, and I don't know how because I got this big paper in front of me. There's always, I talked about going to the digital market, but let me just, digital media, let me talk about social media for just 1 second. 1,500 plus compelling soldier stories on 7,000 social media posts across 450 plus from USAREC, GoArmy.com, our Office of Public Affairs, and our Cadet Command social channels. This is how we're getting after that grad market. We have processed 11,000 comments on our own social media channels and driving the interaction, talking to them to get them to be able to see what we as the Army has to offer. We are crushing it.
No, thanks. And I'll tell you, in addition to all of that, so this investment in these, and the recruiters, the feedback has been tremendous, very positive. I run into a lot of recruiters who are here. You've probably seen their pop-up displays. We got about 50 of them. Those are actual United States Army recruiters. So every time you walk past one, that's one of our staff sergeants or sergeant first classes. Wherever they are, you can see where they're stationed, representing our great Army. One of the things that came back to us, given this is 2024, they say, hey, sir, can we, instead of using our recruiter zone, our older systems at the recruiting stations, can you create an app that allows us, instead of going back to the station, we can just interact on our app? And I thought that makes all the sense in the world. And so, of course, the team really got after it, and we deployed that recruiter Go Recruit app for our recruiters about 10 months ago, about 8,000 downloads, and they are they are loving it. And whatever they do, they're not having to drive back to their stations. So it's creating efficiency for that recruiter and their families. They take an applicant's information. Oh, by the way, you can, if you take a picture of, let's say, a license, and that data will immediately go from the license and go right into a potential applicant form. and break it down for each of the fields. So the recruiter's not doing all of this work sitting in his GSA vehicle or back at a recruiting station. So little things like that matter, and that's why I think we're seeing success.
Sir, thank you for letting me join you today. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us. And if you haven't actually been at our booth, we're upstairs in Exhibit D Hall. We've got some folks there to be able to talk to you, and we'd love to talk to you. So thank you again for joining us. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.